Hey guys, I just played a game where I ended up in this endgame position right here, and I thought it was a really interesting endgame and instructive endgame to know how to think through this. You can see black has the pass pawn on this side, but white has the 3 against 1 majority over here on the queen side, and so a very interesting type of position. I'm going to show you this game, how we got into this position, but we're going to spend most of the time talking about this position right here and what I was thinking, and then we're going to kind of compare that to what Stockfish showed was actually the best approach to the game. And we're going to see the kind of some holes even in my thinking. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so we had a Sicilian, and I did get to play my bishop b5 lines, which you guys know I like to do. On knight d7, I usually always play d4 right away with the idea of putting my queen on d4. Now, normally I don't like to put my queen on d4 because normally the knight on b8 will go to c6, attack my queen. I have to waste a move, and that's just a really nice square for the knight anyway, and so to give black a free tempo doesn't make sense to me. But in this case, the knight's already been moved. It's not that easy to kick away my queen. Yes, black can play e5, and sometimes they do, but then they create the backward d-pawn, which is a target, and it gives me a very clear plan for the the middle game. So I'm fine with that, and that's why I like to play d4 whenever I see knight to d7. So e6, this is pretty common. Instead of going all the way to e5, black goes to e6. So this is not a backward pawn. And it's not backward because this e6 pawn can actually support it if it tries to move forward. And so it's not as weak as if black would have played, all the way to e5. Then I can kind of sort of blockade that, put my knight there, pile up my rooks, and just attack it, right? So e6, very common approach. Knight c3, a6, of course, trying to trade off the bishop. Bishop g5 and castles. Okay, bishop e7. All right, this is a position I've had many times. It's very common. It's actually pretty good for white, so I like playing this line. And the way that we need to take advantage of this is by striking in the center right away with e5. Now, it's important to note that my king is already out of the center. I've safely castled. Black has not. Okay, and so that's a key factor in the game. Everything else is kind of even. We're both developed, but the fact that black's king is here is very important, and in some lines we can actually make black pay for that. So takes, and at this point we actually have a very immediate threat to win a piece. So what I would do if it was my turn would be simply to take this, and after black recaptures, I'm just going to take here and then take here, and I just win that bishop for free. So that's kind of the threat, and it's not an easy threat for black to deal with. So if you imagine a move like h6, it does nothing. I'm still going to take this, and I'm still going to take here and win my piece, right? So that doesn't help. And also, if black tries to just castle, again, they have the same problem. I can take here and then win the piece, or I can even just take it right away because the king is no longer defending. And so this kind of trade also wins a piece, all right? So black has to do something a little bit more drastic. Most people play bishop c6, which is actually the best move for black. And then usually what happens is takes, and then the queen goes to c5. You've probably seen me do a game like this, I would imagine, in the past. And the point is that now black can't castle, okay? But in this game, my opponent played bishop to b5, so a little bit of a different move. Now, I want you guys to pause and think through, do you notice any problems with this move? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, the thing that I noticed was not the same thing that Stockfish noticed, obviously. But I thought, okay, I'm going to take, this is what I did, and then I'm going to take, and I'm going to get these double isolated pawns, and I'm just going to go into an endgame and attack these pawns. That was my plan, and it worked out pretty well in this game. But Stockfish says this position is just very equal. Just very, very equal. Black has some counterplay on the A file, so I have to spend a move to defend that. And going back, I'll show you what Stockfish recommended. The move queen to f4. And this is a really strong move. And the first point about it is that the queen is under attack, so the queen has to move somewhere. Let's say queen a5. It's a good square for the queen. And now we play the simple move knight to g4. And we're simply going to win a pawn on f6. That's our goal. We're just going to do a big trade. Takes, and win a pawn. Like it's that simple. And if black tries to trade to avoid that, well, then we can simply take here and look at this. Queen to d6 check, and black's in big trouble. Okay. It looks like knight to d5 is just winning for white on the spot. So nice little sacrifice. And this is the big threat. Of course, if this happens, then the rook's coming over and it's mate in 3. And so, yeah, I mean, black's completely losing. So that's a nice idea. I actually hadn't seen that before, and I didn't think of it in the game, but I will keep that in the back of my mind for next time. Queen f4 is a nice move here. But anyway, I decided to trade and go into this endgame, defended my pawn, castles, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and keep trading some pieces. And the reason that I did this is because, generally speaking, weak pawns like this, the further the game goes into the end game, they get easier and easier to attack. When there's so many pieces on the board, you know, a lot of times the pieces can defend them, or the pieces can be creating counter threats, and you don't necessarily have time to go and take the pawns. But as you get into the end game, where there's only a couple of pieces left, or maybe a rook or two, usually it's easier to go hunt weak pawns like that. So that's what I was going for, and so I just traded off all the minor pieces there and just left the rooks. C3, basically I'm just going to blockade this pawn so that it can't move, and also kind of shut down these files for black's rooks, and then bring my king into the game. All right, so my plan is very straightforward. It's going to be very difficult for black to defend that. So now I think black makes a good decision here. They see what's happening, right? They see that this is coming. They see that it's not going to be very easy to defend this pawn. That's the weakness of double isolated pawns. And so they decide to abandon even the open file and go for a counterattack on the king side. And this makes a lot of sense, right? This is where they have the pawn majority, 4 against 3. This is where their king is. And there's just really no point trying to go over here right now. So this is a smart decision. So I played g3, shutting down the rook temporarily. Then they brought this rook over. Okay, king up. I'm just going with my plan. Now black's king is trying to infiltrate here. I played f4, and Stockfish does not like this move at all. And the reason is, well, first of all, let me tell you why I played it. I wanted to try to keep all my pawns protected. And I thought if I play f4, everything's now defended, and it looks difficult for black to be able to take my pawns. Turns out I was wrong. Because I was wrong, Stockfish says, hey, you just needed to take this and push your pawns as fast as possible. And this is a super important key takeaway from this game that you want to remember. In these end games, advanced pawns are very, very valuable. Pass pawns, of course, are valuable, but advanced pass pawns are even more valuable, and you're going to see exactly why as we keep going through this game. So that's what I should have done. I should have just immediately taken that and started pushing these guys down. But I didn't. Played f4. King h3. h5, okay. And here I realized what was happening. If black just takes my rook, like let's just say I played a move like b4. Black can simply take here, take here. I'm not going to be able to save this pawn, right? It's attacked twice, so I'm going to lose that. I'm going to lose this, and then black's going to push this down, and I didn't like my chances. So I thought that I would slow down what black was trying to do a little bit by bringing my rook over. All right, rook comes down, now b4, takes, c4, and now the rook takes. Okay, so this is the position that I talked about at the beginning of the game that I really want to talk about. So before I talk about this, I want you guys to pause the video and think through, if you're playing this position as white, what would you play? And really more importantly, what would your plan be going forward? Are you going to do something here with the rooks? Are you going to do something over here on the queen? Like what's your plan going to be? So think through it, and then we'll talk about what I did, and then we'll talk about what Stockfish said the best plan was. All right, so if you've had a chance to analyze that, the first thing when you're dealing with these king and pawn end games, you always want to ask yourself, what happens if I just simplify and trade everything off? Because I could have done that, right? I could have taken, and then pushed my pawns, right? Capture this and push my pawn. And so you want to calculate, are you going to win that battle or not? And I calculated I'm not going to win that because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 moves before I can get a queen. And black just needs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And also, notice where my king was going to end up, and notice where black's queen was going to end up, lining up on my king. Okay, so just to give you an example of what would have happened had the game went this way: king here, c5, h4, takes, here, 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 queen. Right, so black, not only do they get the queen first, it's also with check, and it's still probably maybe going to be a draw because I'm still going to be able to get my queen, right? Black can't actually prevent me, but what they can do is move their queen and start hunting down my other pawns, and it's still a pretty tricky endgame, most likely a draw, maybe from perpetual check. I don't actually know if we analyze that in depth what would happen, but it didn't look great for me, right? I felt like I should probably be winning, and so I didn't want to go for that liquidation and just trading everything. So what I decided to do was trade one rook and then just move this rook away. Okay, and the reason I wanted to do that, here's my kind of general plan. I'm going to bring my king up here. I'm going to take this. I'm going to start pushing my pawns. And when black pushes this pawn, I'm just going to sacrifice my rook for it. Eventually, I understand I'm going to lose my rook. But after that happens, I'm going to have two advanced pawns, sorry, with the support of my king against black's rook, and that's going to be a win for me, okay? So that made sense in my mind, and it actually worked out nicely in the game. So I'll show you that. The rook came over, I pushed the pawn, black started pushing, I started pushing my pawns. Okay, I didn't even care about this one. I just needed to make sure I had two connected pawns that were advanced, and so I went ahead and did that. And black was trying to sacrifice the rook and get a queen. I didn't want to let that happen. Here we go, got the queen. And so, you know, this is what I was talking about. I had two pawns, so I knew I was going to have one to go win the game, right? And I could just sacrifice here. So black resigned. Now, that looks great. It worked out. I won the game. But I actually made a really big mistake. So let's go back and talk about what Stockfish found that I didn't realize. All right, so going back in this position. All right, so let's see what Stockfish found. So captures. Okay, I brought my rook over. Black brought their rook over. I played c5, h4, a4. And by the way, this was a wasted move on my part. And this was a very, very bad move. See, what's happening here, and you might not realize it, but the game is actually turning into a race of pawns. Black's pawn is racing here, and very soon black's going to play the move, or they should have played the move e5 to create another pass pawn, which is racing here. And I have, you know, these two pawns that are racing here, right? Of course, black can sacrifice the rook for one pawn. I can sacrifice my rook for one of these pawns, but not both of them. And so what it comes down to is who's going to have the, you know, the pawns advance the fastest. A4 really does nothing for me. That pawn is already kind of too far, right? It's not one of my more advanced pawns. I need to be focusing on these. So that's why it's such a bad move. And now h3, king here. And this was black's big mistake. See, they didn't realize, and I mean, I don't blame them. I didn't realize either. They didn't realize the only thing that mattered in this game was this little pawn race. These two pawns versus these two pawns. That was it. So whoever did it faster was going to win. This move doesn't help push the pawns. It's just kind of a wasted move, right? So that's why it was so bad, because it allowed me to push one of my pawns for free. Okay, if we take that move back and play a move like e5, check this out, takes, right? I'm going to keep doing my thing here. I'm going to take this. And look at this. Now this pawn is going, and black is racing. I'm racing, but I'm behind. Okay, so check it out. c6, e3, c7, e2, and I don't want to move here because the king's going to come with tempo and attack my rook. So let's just say I move, you know, somewhere out of the way. King f2. Black is threatening now to get a queen. And notice how I'm losing this pawn race, because after this happens, guess what? Black's pawn is only 2 spaces away. 1, 2. And look at mine. I got all this space to go. And so I'm just lost here, right? Like, yes, I can get a queen. Black's going to sacrifice. Yes, I can start pushing. Well, black's turn. Of course, this is going to happen. And yes, I can push, but I got 1, 2, 3, 4 moves, and black only has 2. And I'm losing this endgame, right? Here we go. And the queen is going to be able to eventually, it's not easy, but eventually black's going to win this, okay? So going back to, like, let's just say this position right here, that's all this was. It was a race between the passed pawns. In this case, black didn't have a passed pawn yet, but they could very easily create one, versus my soon-to-be passed pawns. And black failed to realize that, played the crucial mistake here, and I was able to win, like you saw earlier. So keep that in mind, guys, when you get to these endgames, especially these rook endings, and even if there wasn't rooks on the board, that the same kind of thing applies. Be paying attention to the passed pawns and how far advanced are they. And remember, if you can get a passed pawn with a king supporting it, it's very difficult for the rook to stop it. Sometimes you can do some sort of like perpetual checks where you kind of check from the side, or maybe you get behind and you check from behind. But a lot of times the king is going to be able to push the pawn down, get a queen, and you have to sacrifice the rook. So anyway, I hope that made sense and you understand like the key points, because this is a very tricky endgame. And I think these types of positions where, you know, you have some rooks, you have some pawns, you're trying to decide, should I trade rook? Should I not trade rooks? What's the idea, right? These are very, very common in chess. So anyway, let me know if that helped you guys. If you want to see another example game of the importance of stopping your opponent's counterplay, go watch this video right here. Don't want to miss that one. But having said that, stay sharp, play smart, and take care.